All right, just to confirm for my listeners who I have on the phone here, it is the legendary DJ Aphrodite. Is it you, sir?
Yes, how are you doing? Okay.
I'm doing wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat. I know you're a busy man, and I'm going to try and take as little of your time as possible. I want to do some fun questions to get to know you, and then we'll dive into industry. Is that okay?
Yes, no problem.
Awesome. Okay. I want you to think back, if you remember, do you remember the first album you ever purchased with your own money?
Oh, well, probably an album by The Jam called Setting Suns.
And what year are we talking? I'm not...
Oh, this is maybe 1980.
1980s, eh? And can you tell me what you the first concert you ever attended would have been? Oh, we got to cut out.
Hello?
Yeah, gotcha.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
Someone
okay.
tried to phone me. Yes.
That's what happens with WhatsApp. It's okay. Okay, next question I was going to ask you is, do you remember what the first concert you ever attended would have been?
Wow, the first concert. Fatback, I think.
Say it again?
A band called Fatback in about 1980, 81.
Okay, and were these guys like synthetic sound creators, or was this just regular rock and roll? Like, what kind of music is this?
No, this was like jazz funk, soul music, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. When would you say was the first time you actually heard like synthetic or any kind of reproduced sound that made you interested in wanting to do what you do today?
Probably around that same time, about 1980, 1981, 1982. A bit of craft work was seeping in, and then about 82, 83, I got into electro funk.
Interesting. Okay, one song that is synonymous with your name and guys that are local here in Toronto is song Men of Steel, the Superman song. And often when I Google it, I see your name associated with it, yet I believe Slip and Slide are the ones that made it. Can you tell me the story behind that song?
The guys in Toronto, Slip and Slide, they sent a demo to us. I think they sent it to Micky, actually, and he just played it. We loved it, and we decided to release it on our Urban Takeover label. I made a special version of it so that I could play it out and be different, and that version went on an album called Urban Jungle as well, as a remix. But because I was DJing out a lot at the time, I just get credited because that's the easiest name to remember. People don't really read the labels, they just see an Urban Takeover track and instantly think it was me.
I get you. I'm sure that happens with other songs too. I want to talk about...
It happens a lot with...
Go ahead, sorry.
It happens with remixes.
Is there any other big ones that you can think of that often you get credited for, yet you just remixed it?
Yeah, 5 on it. The Jungle Brothers remix, No Diggity remix. There's a few.
How about All Over Me? Is All Over Me an original?
Actually, I sampled the vocals, but I cleared it with Barrington Levy directly.
Interesting. So, did you ever actually get a chance to work in the studio with him, or did you just sample his lyrics?
No, this was a kind of, at the time, this was a manager thing. Okay. It was like my people contacted their people, as it were.
I get you. And that's at a primal level. Like nowadays, we understand those things, but back in the time that you were doing that, it wasn't so known. A lot of guys were accidentally ripping people off without, and then learning it in the back end, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of that going on, but there was, yeah, especially in the early 90s, people were sampling everything. But if your record got to a certain level, i.e. it went, crossed over to the mainstream and had a proper release, you generally had to get the samples cleared.
Definitely.
you know, years before that, you didn't. You know, even some of the big tracks didn't get cleared. You know, the sample didn't get cleared. But by the early 90s, mid 90s, you had to get things cleared.
Well, I watched actually a documentary years ago about the Amen break itself and how it's been somewhat stolen from the Winstons, I believe, and you know now we can make music with it, yet they're not getting any royalties from all these songs that have been used using their one drum loop. Do you have any opinion on that?
No.
Like, do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, they might be able to, but the problem is that the only money you're going to make are from the big released labels. You aren't gonna. There's no mileage in trying to chase down a white label that sold 2,000 copies in 1994.
I'm with you 100%.
It's just not gonna. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So the only ones that you can kind of like go after are the big ones, people like Mantronics and stuff like that, maybe.
I think of the Straight Outta Compton.
Yeah, but whether they can do that, I don't know. I mean, you know, they would need to sit down and get it done themselves. That's the problem with beats. There was this conception in the 90s that if you sampled the beat, it was much more difficult to prove. So people were just sampling beats and bass freely, but vocals always had to be cleared.
Yeah, I guess it's much more identifiable, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this, because I know a person that you work a lot with is Micky Finn, someone who I've had on the show earlier. And I just want to ask you, how did you two meet?
We met in a record shop.
And
yeah, we met in a record shop. I was playing a demo of a tune called Some Justice, Urban Shakedown. At the time, it was kind of it was a very rough version of that track. And I played it in a record shop, and then we worked on it together in my kind of in my bedroom studio at home, and then it went really, really well.
Okay, so Urban Shakedown.
That was another track that sampled a big vocal, and we cleared the vocal with Marshall Jefferson and CeCe Rogers by the time it got to be released with a major label.
And I heard you mention the name Urban Shakedown was already a part of that. Like, did you begin Urban Shakedown and then Micky kind of jumped in? Like, how was it formed?
There were two of us that went to university, and we would make music together. And then I literally, at the beginning of that, I met Micky in the record shop when I was playing a demo to see what people thought. And so he came in very early on, but we decided that, you know, the two of us were going to be Urban Shakedown, and he was going to be the featuring artist.
Interesting. And here we are today. Is Urban Shakedown still active in signing and distroing music?
No, it hasn't done for ages. Since the changeover from vinyl to digital didn't go very well for us. You know, I guess there is room to do these things now. And then at the time, I also had children, had to do a lot of the raising of them myself.
Yeah, I get you, man. Okay, I want to talk about the gear, the stuff you use to make your music. Like, how would you compare what you started on to where we are today? Like, are you still working on the same equipment, or have you upgraded? What are you using?
At the moment, I use Logic 10 or Logic X. Pretty much, I've still got the Amiga set up next to me, because a lot of old tunes, if I want to remix them, are on an Amiga and an Akai S3000. So if I need to remix anything, for example, I re-recorded Stalker recently, I had to load it all up and then transfer it into Logic. And I did that with King of the Beats a couple of years back as well.
That's interesting. Do you think that today, in today's industry, that a DJ must produce in order to be successful? Yes. And in fact, it used to be that the DJs were famous, and then it was the producers
that just sat around and people had to send the DJ. These days it's the other way around. It's a lot about the producers and the biggest guys. They produce music. They don't really know how to DJ. They just stand behind and wave their arms around and geeing up the crowd. So there's not much technical DJing going on say the main stage at Ultra.
Well, no, I find it an interesting thing because you take an example like Pendulum, where you had a great producer and they team him up with someone like El Hornet to create this group. And I find a lot of people are doing that, where you get teams of people, where you get producers working with DJs creating one name because together they can put on a show. But I think that's better than having a great producer who's a shitty DJ or vice versa.
Yeah.
But once in a while we get a guy like yourself or a guy like Andy, or there are a few diamond in the rough where you guys are just amazing all around. And I got to ask you, well, in your opinion, what is it that separates, a DJ from a good DJ?
It separates a DJ from a good DJ. You just don't know. It's that hidden thing that you can't put your finger on. I don't know what it is, but when I play records, I get into it, and because I get into it, other people want to get into it as well. I'm a perfectionist when it comes to the mix, and each track I choose to play, there's a reason behind choosing that track, either because it's going to be part of a mix to take me to a specific track I'm going to play later, or it's because I need to get the crowd going and have to mix out whatever I'm playing or change direction. A lot of that I think makes good DJs. What you can't really do is pre-plan your set and just play it.
Well, that's
if you really want to grab the crowd. But you can do that on a big stage with 30,000 people.
Yeah, like
that's what goes on. That's what we see it going on all summer long.
Yes, I personally just came from the Rampage Festival, and
okay.
It definitely is what you're talking about. They definitely have catered their set before they went up there. They're not feeling that crowd and then trying to adjust based on what the intuition is telling them.
Yes.
I find it an interesting topic because I'd love to hear somebody fully quantify it. I like the advice that you've given in that you can't pre-plan your set. You have to feel the crowd. I think one of the things that separates you as well as a DJ and a producer is your commercial success. One of the stories I want to share with you is when I was about 15, 16, my father had asked me like what the music I listened to is and how he could find it. And I said, it's jungle. You'll never find it. Like, it's not at HMV or anything. And then he came home with an Aftershock CD. And
oh, wow, okay.
Well, and he goes, I ordered it from HMV. It's jungle music. And I'm like, how the effing hell? Because up until then, all I had heard were sets. I had never heard a CD that was track for track. And my question to you is, how did that happen?
There was a few tracks I listened to, a few albums I listened to when I was younger, and I liked the fact that there was a few of them where it would be a kind of like seamless journey, and so I wanted to reproduce that, but not as a mix, so that they were separate, so that each track was separate, but it would kind of blend in. So it will kind of take you on a musical journey from beginning to end of the album. And so when you put the album in, you would end up playing it as an album, as a full journey.
Oh, yeah.
So I spent a lot of time thinking about what order the tracks should, etc. These days, because of the way albums get sold, there isn't so much reason to do that. People tend to put the biggest tunes first, and then people just buy those without buying the whole CD.
No, I got to say, your artistic mission worked, because that's exactly what that CD did. It took you on a journey. It started you off like telling a story, and there was a climax, yes. And then it ended, and you were ready to you wanted to read that book again, if you will. And
yeah.
But the other thing I'm curious about is the commercial aspect of it, because that was the first time outside of somebody like, let's say, Prodigy, that I heard I heard an Aphrodite AWOL tape, and I also heard him at HMV. How did you get the commercial
Right.
distribution?
I was doing my Aphrodite recording stuff, and then basically this guy hassled me. He turned out to be my manager. I think he phoned me about 50 times, and I said, no, don't want a manager, no. And I was fiercely independent and, pressing up my own records and doing all these things on my own, and selling things on my own. And eventually I sat down with him, and he said, look, I had to give him 20% of my royalties. And I was like, well, I need that justified. Da, da, da. And he said, okay. And then my CD was out, and I was only reaching underground. He said, look, this will cross over. And I was licensing tracks to compilation albums. So those compilation albums, were getting TV play and all the rest of it. So this was at the early days when you would have bits of drum and bass appearing on the TV. But still very few and far between. And I got a deal from V2 Records, which was Richard Branson's label that he started after he sold Virgin. He sold Virgin, then waited for 5 years, and started up a new label called V2. And so they put out my album. They put out the first one and the second one, Aftershock. And they did. And they did great. They got it out, and I ended up touring the world, and they got the record in HMV.
Amazing, and it ended up here in Canada. And one thing I want to touch on that you mentioned there about Richard Branson, V2 Recordings, I was mixing it up. Is it V2 Records or V2 Recordings?
V2 Records.
Thank you for making that clear for me. What an amazing journey you went on, because with that, I guess you had a bit of a defense up because you're so independent, and even to this day you are so independent. But I would say there's no regrets in that endeavor, right? Like, it really did branch you out, and regardless of the lucrativeness of it, it gave you popularity that opened other avenues. Is it safe to say that?
Sorry, what did you say? I got distracted by something, sorry.
No problem. I said, is it safe to say that there's no regrets in that endeavor? That although maybe it wasn't the most lucrative thing, you gave up 20% of your royalties, but it opened up other avenues, you would do it again the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was great to be, to end up. Yeah, it was great. I was touring everywhere and DJing all the time. It was fantastic. It was a really fantastic time. When you're riding your crest of a wave like that, there's nothing better than that.
That's awesome. What can we expect to hear from you in 2019? Are you working on anything?
I am actually. I've got some ideas. Ranging from ranging from brand new material that I've got kind of ideas in there, working with a few vocalists maybe, and then also I need to remaster or re-record some of my earlier tracks, and I have to do that because I don't own them. So I would like to own them, but I can only own them if I re-record them.
I love that loop. I love that loophole. I was going to say that about vocals before when I said sometimes that you can't steal them because they're just too obvious. But if you sing them again, it's okay.
Well, the mad thing is that if it's a sample, then you don't have to re-sing it.
Well, can't you get around it by re-singing it, like just saying it yourself rather than sampling the voice?
You can, but some of them are samples to begin with.
I get you. So what is it exactly that you're doing by re-recording to gain the licensing to the song?
I don't owe them. United Music Group owns my music.
Gotcha.
And I don't earn any money or any royalties from it.
Okay, and you gave me an array of songs before we spoke. In there, I noticed a lot of names. Is that new music that's been remixed, or are these just classic songs from Aphrodite?
What I sent you, most of that is just classic songs. There's a few new ones in there. There's the UK Apache, that's probably most recent, that came out last year.
All right, awesome. Well, and when I do play this for the listeners, just check the link below. There will be a whole set of Aphrodite tunes to click through. Do you have any plans?
That'd be great.
It will be up. Do you have any plans to come to Canada or North America this year?
I hope so. I haven't played in Toronto for a long time. It would be great to do that.
Well, we'll try and get you out here. There's a few promoters throwing jams every couple weeks. It's not the scene it once was. That's what I got to say. Like, I remember, I'm sure you remember coming out and having thousands of people at the show, but we're lucky to get, 600-700. And that's, I'm serious. It's not what it was.
If it's just a few hundred, that's great.
Hey, and you know what it is? It's a few hundred hardcore junglers who love the music. And wouldn't you love to perform in front of that than 1,000 people who are just there for the drinks?
Yeah.
Can you share maybe a fond memory of being in Toronto or being in Canada?
Oh, wow. I mean, the first time I went, I always remember going up the CN Tower, being really excited, and I was like, oh, wow, I've got to go up there. And then the actual rave was really good. I think it was by the Docks.
Okay, well, let me tell you something. The Docks is now called Rebel Nightclub. Still exists, but it's just a new name. And the CN Tower, you can now walk outside of. So,
oh, no way,
yeah,
really?
man, they got a thing that you can go up to the top and you put on a harness, and you and like a group of 6 other people will walk around the circle of the CN Tower.
Right.
Yeah, if you're not afraid of heights, I really suggest you do it. I'm terrified, so I never will. But you see people when you're at the baseball game, even like you look up out of the Sky Dome, look up the CN Tower, and they're up there hanging off the side of the tower. It's like, oh my God, crazy.
Wow.
But if that's your shtick, man. Okay, I got 2 final questions for you. These are fun ones, so please just have fun with these questions, okay?
Okay.
Are you familiar with Mount Rushmore?
Vaguely.
So it's like a rock stone where there's like the 4 famous American presidents are carved into the stone.
The actual Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, not the song, not a song. Okay, so my question to you is, if we were to create a Mount Rushmore for jungle, who would the 4 faces be?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Here's hold on, Aphrodite. Before you even answer, if I could just say, you're one of the few people that I can say I'm asking this to who's been the answer for like half of the people that I've asked this question to. Oh, you got to have Aphrodite.
Well, thank you very much, but out of general politeness, I couldn't choose myself. But I would choose one of the founders. I would put as LTJ Bookham, I think.
Okay.
He did amazing things earlier on. Oh wow. Ronnie Size.
Mm-hmm.
He would. Wow.
Well, and while you think, I just want to say about LTJ Bookham is I think he gets forgotten a lot. Like, he really was a legend in our scene. It's just he was from a different area, I guess, than everyone else. And
well, don't forget that he came out with music which had that amazing bass line. Dum, 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 dum. He had that, and that was one of the first jungle tunes, or the first jungle tunes that kind of like took you from hardcore and made you dance to the half beat, and that was what jungle was all about. And it was music by Bookham, which was seminal in doing that, along with some tunes by Foul Play at the time.
Interesting. All right, so you got Ronnie Size, LTJ Bookham. We're not going to put Aphrodite.
I can't put myself up there. Wow. I've just got to pick the first people that come into my head here.
Yeah.
I'll probably say Groove Rider, because he was in it from the beginning, and he DJ'd everywhere, and he had that radio show and became such a big influence on the whole thing.
Definitely.
Wow. Who else? Who else did I pick? I'll pick my partner, Micky Finn.
I was hoping you would.
He was there at the beginning alongside people like Groove and then Hype,
Oh yeah, definitely in Hype. You know what? And you mentioned guys like Groove Rider. They're pioneers and legends. Actually, when I talked to MC Ridla for the first time, I asked him who was jungle to you. Who was the first jungle? He told me Groove Rider. He said there's nothing before Groove Rider. And obviously I've heard different answers since, but to that man. That was his first, and I think you've just hit on something with LTJ Bookham. I've never heard that he was the pioneer of a certain bass line that made people go on the half step, bringing them from hardcore into the jungle. That's a very interesting analogy. Okay, final question for you. If you could put 5 items in a vault that would encapsulate the rave, what would those 5 items be?
Oh wow, 5 items that encapsulate a rave.
Now here's the thing. Let me give you some parameters here. Is that you can put like whole cities in there. People have put the whole country of England in the vault. So you can put anything you want in this thing. This vault is huge. And yeah.
Okay. Oh wow. God. I would put not just. I'd put the English countryside, specifically where there are huge rave tents.
Okay.
where raves went on. Places where, you know, like Global Gathering and Rain Dance. These kind of places.
Interesting.
Wow. What else was I put in?
You know what? As you're thinking, I'm looking at a picture of you that I'm using right now, and it's very colorful. It's like a black and white photo, but it's got all these colors reaching up at you. Do you know the picture? I think it's your profile on your fan page.
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful, and it makes me think the rave because of all the colors. I think glow sticks and stuff like that. You know, so that's why I think I'd throw this picture of you in the vault. This is the rave. But sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Oh wow. Oh, you know, you just have to put the whole cross section of all the music in there. Everything from house to happy hardcore. You know, from everything. But all the CDs would have to go in there. I guess you could ban a few people like Marshmallow.
Well, okay. With that, I gotta ask: do you have like a silent delight? Then is there something that when no one's listening to, you're actually pumping? Like, you know, you're not really a junglist. When the lights go out and no one's watching, you listen to blues music. Like,
I listen to everything. You know,
Okay.
my musical taste. Electro. You know, I would put classic electro funk in there because that was to me the first. I still collect those vinyl now and again. I'll go on Discogs. I paid £50 for an original 12-inch before.
Oh wow.
And I've got a little selection there of my favourite tunes of all time. Yeah, because it was that was the first it was the first house music. It did kind of like evolve into hip hop around '86, and which I didn't particularly like. So I liked the electro era, and then when house came along, and the Balearic sound came along, that was me. I loved it.
Well, you know what? One of the questions I ask a lot of people, which I refrain from asking you because you're a pioneer of the scene. You were there when it was born. Is what was your first experience with the rave? But can you tell me like the first time you experienced a rave versus just being at a sound system bar or something?
Where was I? I think it was probably I was down at the Tunnel Club in southeast London. Unknown to me, I think it was probably Micky Finn on the decks, but this was years before I even knew him. So this is in 1988, I think. 88, 89. There was this big 1988. There was this big movement, obviously against alcohol, and everyone started raving. And that was that.
Hold on a sec. That's actually kind of funny because when I hate to say it, but it's true. When you associate the rave, there's a lot of drug being taken. So were they saying no more alcohol, take ecstasy instead?
Well, at the time it was acid. Acid was the thing, and then ecstasy came in a little while later, like months later. There was a period where you had to have a smiley T-shirt on everywhere you went in London, and then as soon as that had come, that already went, and then suddenly you weren't allowed in anywhere if you had a smiley T-shirt on.
Well, then hold on. Okay, then can I drop a couple things in the vault on your behalf? Maybe a smiley T-shirt and a hit of acid.
Yeah, go on in. Smiley T-shirts.
And when you say smiley, you mean that big smiley face that we all know that says like shit happens? It's got the big smiley face.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was a kind of like when, you know, in '88 there was this kind of like raving happen, and then everyone was dropping acid. It was called acid house, and so everyone adopted that big yellow smiley, and then people were making kind of variations on it, like a cracked head and like a, you know, crosses for eyes type smiley.
Well, Nirvana,
it was
right?
a trend. You had to have you had to have a smiley T-shirt. You had to have a smiley T-shirt everywhere you went. And then I think within 2 months, you're not allowed to have a smiley T-shirt.
The authorities got a hold of it.
Like, yeah, it was literally cool for several weeks at the beginning of Acid House, and then it was not cool. As soon as it was cool, it became uncool. If that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. The fad had. Your parents started wearing it, right? Hey, kids, I'm one of you now.
No, that was years later when raving appeared in the newspapers. About 2 years later.
Oh, that's fun days. But hey, I'm going to sign off to the listeners, but I want to talk to you, so stay on the phone with me. Is that okay?
No problem.
Okay, hold on one sec. Okay, well, that was him. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed talking to the man. That's DJ Aphrodite. Like I say, links below to the music he was kind enough to share, as well as his homepage. And we're going to try and get him over the Atlantic and get a little Canadian tour going. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Until next time, peace out.